So there's definitely a lot of lessons to be taken from Seasonal Mastery so far, but for the second one, what would I like to see? Well, something with a bit of a different focus from just raiding content. Something along the lines of Season of Discovery with class-focused updates. Shift up the established meta in PvP and PvE. So I would say that was a fairly good guess, or an assumption at least, as indeed at BlizzCon 2023, World of Warcraft Classic's second seasonal server was announced, the Season of Discovery. Releasing very soon on November 30th, this new season will be aiming to reshape the established meta of vanilla through adding in tons of new abilities to the game, some of which you'll recognize from later expansions, some of which are totally new to the game. And I am hyped for this. We even heard the words at BlizzCon, it's all of Classic with a plus. And honestly, this is the first real step with intent towards Classic Plus. The only thing that separates this from a true Classic Plus launch for me is that it is a seasonal server, and season means there is a start date and an end date. And well, MMOs aren't really supposed to have end dates, they are persistent online worlds by their very nature. Still, what this does give Blizzard a chance to do, as we are going to talk more about later, is experiment, take risks, and try something new and see how the players react. This is exactly what seasonal servers in World of Warcraft should be doing, changing things. Not just adding small, timid changes, but overhauling the game, adding features that players will have to figure out, and just giving people who love Classic something to get really excited about once again. Because at the end of the day, it is seasonal. And for that reason, I'm way more willing to just see what can be done in Classic WoW, what players will like and what they won't like. When we play this server, it will more or less be the Classic Plus beta, or maybe even an alpha instead, but this approach is a huge win for everyone. Just make sure you do give feedback on it. This exists right now, as in Season of Discovery, because enough people over time have said, hey, what would Classic look like if classes changed or they did try to rebalance things? Maybe it's too far changes-wise, and that is fine. There will be lessons taken from Season of Discovery either way, but taking a bold step forwards towards the future of Classic is something I am so excited to see. So, how is this whole Discovery thing going to work then? What will this server look like? Well, the only real information we got was from BlizzCon, and the playtests at BlizzCon. Blizzard will not be holding any public betas for Season of Discovery, because they want the players to discover things together when they start playing the game. Of course, once something is known online, information gets passed around incredibly fast nowadays. That's not something anyone can stop from happening, but Blizzard not holding a beta is probably the best way to ensure that players will have something to discover when they log in. It won't just be new abilities or spell interactions either. One of the key features of Season of Discovery are rune engravings. Players will get their first quest for a rune just after having started their character. There are currently 3 engraving slots: your chest, leg and gloves, with each class having 4 to 5 known runes per slot currently. Blizzard themselves have said there are over 100 runes total, and that there will be more added as we progress into the season. These runes can be swapped anytime you like, and will be applied in a very similar fashion to how you apply glyphs in Cataclysm, in that you'll learn your rune, and then you can just apply it from a new interface. These runes may vary from abilities which will be familiar to us, such as Ice Lance for mages, or Penance for priests, to things which are totally new, such as druids being able to access Wind Fury, or warlocks' metamorphosis now being a tanking stance. Oh, and on top of that, rogues can tank, and shamans can tank, and paladins can tank. I mean, some of them already could technically tank, but they can really tank now. Surely if half the classes in the game can tank, we won't be short on tanks still, right? Blizzard are also considering reductions to respec costs as well as dual specialization. No final word on that at the moment, but I think it makes sense given the theme of the season. So these runes are going to be a big deal, but here's the thing, we don't know how to get them at all. They will be, you guessed it, discovered through gameplay. Maybe one is hidden up a mountain in a chest somewhere, or dropped from a dungeon boss, or a reward from a long quest chain. In fact, this system is somewhat reminiscent of the Legion artifact hidden weapon appearances, and if you played that expansion, some of them were practically free in that you just went and farmed a rare mob, others were quite difficult or complicated, and I think that will also be the case here. I should also mention Season of Discovery will feature a phased leveling release. This is another totally new step for World of Warcraft, with inspiration coming from capping players during the beta versions of previous games, and seeing how a meta evolved around more limited talent or quest choices. For Season of Discovery, at first we will be capped at level 25. There is currently no confirmed time duration for each phase, other than over 1 month and probably under 3 or 4. I think they're just going to feel it out and see what's right though. I would suspect the lower level brackets won't last as long because there will be people at level 25 within a few hours, and even more casual players will be more than capable of hitting this level cap without a huge time investment. I mean, with how popular hardcore has been, we are all pretty familiar with our starting zones by now, right? At level 25, players will have runes and engravings to discover, as well as a revamped Black Fathoms Deep, which will serve as the season's first piece of raiding content. The FD will be a 10-player raid, with updated mechanics, and will also have brand new drops for players to math out and see how far they can push their character during this early bracket. On top of that, at the end of BFD, there will be a new world buff, which is expected to be a revamped version of the pre-existing Blessing of Black Fathom, but we need to wait and see what that ends up being. There will also be an open world event in Ashenvale. This will consist of both PvP and PvE objectives, kind of in a similar vein to how Alterac Valley works. It will reward players both for PvPing as well as defeating PvE objectives. There will also be different tiers of rewards based on your participation. You will also gain reputation with your Warsong Gulch faction by doing this event, and your Warsong rep vendor will now have new items to sell, including low-level mounts which will work specifically inside of Ashenvale. Warsong Gulch will be enabled too, with a 10 to 19 bracket and a 20 to 25 bracket. The PvP ranking system will also be enabled, but it will not be possible to grind rank 14 early on, as certain PvP ranks require certain combat levels to achieve. Winning this event will award an on-use world buff, which you can keep in your bags and use later. I'm thinking some kind of Horn of Victory type thing, which gives everyone in your party or raid some stats. So that's already 2 new world buffs by level 25 then. I wonder if you can stack everything at 60 and if there'll be more introduced later. Speaking of the later levels though, at some point we will be able to go beyond level 25. The next level cap and essentially phase 2 of this season will be level 40. This should be so exciting for Season of Discovery. Hitting those end of talent tree abilities alongside the changes should make for some explosive gameplay. Following that, the next level cap will be 50, and the final one of course being 60. So expect 3 big content phases of Discovery before 60. And even at 60, tons of things will be different. No more warriors dominating the DPS meters. I mean, probably. It would be funny if they were still the best though, to be honest. At Blizzcon, they also teased several images for later raiding content. First of all, an Alarma bot, which of course makes you think of Gnomeregan. This place is definitely big enough to already be considered a raid. Secondly, of course, the unmistakable Scarlet Monastery, another legendary set of dungeons that could very much be raids later on. And finally, a piece of content from vanilla that was never used in its original state. The Karazhan Crypts. You can see in the image they show the zone text for the Pauper's Walk. This is a very deliberate inclusion to put all doubts beyond reason here. This subzone itself is just beyond the entrance to the crypts. The crypts themselves are an expansive set of tunnels and towering rooms below the Deadwind Pass, including many gateways, piles of bones, flooded rooms, and much more. So not only are there class changes for Season of Discovery, Blizzard are also saying, hey, we're gonna try out some new content as well. And if you add together Blizzard trying new drop tables from dungeons and raids with the potential for entirely new content, we may just be seeing new tier sets, or at least tier set bonuses designed specifically for the newer class roles that will exist in the season. In an interview when asked about this possibility, Blizzard said, I think that that's on the table. Sounds pretty good to me. Also, Blackrock Depths, that has to be a raid when we get there, right? Level 50 bracket maybe? Either way, there is so much to be excited about here. Class updates, no PTR testing, discovering the changes in real time, level brackets so we can explore the endgame in different ways, dungeon updates, new loot, the prospect of new raiding content, new open world events. And this is all coming out on the 30th of November, can I just remind you. So, are there any concerns for this season and the direction that it's taking? I think the biggest one I can see at the moment will be faction balance. So, Alliance tends to be the more played faction in vanilla. We saw this very recently with the hardcore realms. The reason being is mostly for performance in PvE at endgame. Now, this should not be much of a consideration when we're capped to level 25, but it still will be. For PvE, more players means more guilds, more groups, and just better access to the content. And for PvP, I mean, if you didn't play Vanilla Classic and see Phase 2 of the game when we had Honor and Ranking with no Battlegrounds, it wasn't pretty. Blizzard had to bring out Battlegrounds early to put a stop to it. There is being the underdog faction, which is attractive and can be fun, but at some point you just get farmed and you can't play the game. Also, Alliance now has access to Wind Fury, Tremor Totem, and a combined version of Strength of Earth and Grace of Air totems. Horde has not got Salvation or Kings yet. And the yet is important because they very well might do later on, but right now, they don't. We also don't know the number of realms that will be available or how many of each type of realm there will be. And this is legitimately a scary prospect for Blizzard, because the Season of Discovery servers are going to absolutely blow up in population on launch. This will be bigger than hardcore, I guarantee it. So basically, if you roll on a PvP server, you better like PvP and understand that vanilla PvP is not very fair and not very balanced. I need to give you a really big warning on this. Understand what you're getting yourself into, especially if you are Horde. Next thing to talk about is, of course, class balance. Blizzard have said if there are things that trivialize the game and make it not fun to play, absolutely will want to go in and do some balancing. Now, Classic as a game itself is not balanced. Mages can pull 500 mobs at once, rogues can CC you for over a minute, and warriors are the best DPS and tank by a huge margin. But we all kinda know what's good and what's bad in vanilla. We accept it because that is just the state of the game. Season of Discovery will be changing this balance to an unknown state. And I think once we start understanding the runes and the possible combinations, everyone is going to start feeling pretty overpowered. For example, here's a scenario which I've thought up for the level 25 bracket. So in vanilla, Shadow Meld has a 10-second cooldown. So a Night Elf Hunter with sniper training and Lone Wolf can Shadow Meld and wait for somebody to run in front of them, and then aim shot them into a Chimera or Explosive, and they're probably going to one-shot them if everything crits. It's going to be some great Night Elf roleplay, protecting Ashenvale from the shadows, the Horde never knowing when you'll strike. Or it could just be incredibly obnoxious, who knows, someone's going to try it out though. But with the average power level of players going up by a lot, it may be the case that open world content and leveling pacing of the game starts to feel more like TBC, or even Wrath. These abilities are very impactful. We haven't seen how they're tuned yet, but this could be a big step towards just powering through content like it's nothing. I think this is okay at endgame when you're stacked up with world buffs, but that leveling stage and feeling as though your character is growing and not always super overpowered is an important aspect of vanilla. And whilst doing the video, I found that Blizzard had answered this concern. They say they're planning to make enemies hit harder, more so than just buffing the health values of everyone to accommodate. With this, the world should still feel dangerous, and you won't just be able to run around and AoE everything down. This means Defias pillagers are getting a buff. I can't wait to see how that plays out. Moving on though, I would also prefer if faction-specific things stayed that way. It feels as though Blizzard have to give Horde Salvation Kings a might now. You might as well just lock in those runes for the level 40 bracket for Shaman. People pick their faction for a whole host of reasons, but vanilla is the only time you got access to unique class synergies. I think that should be kept as it is to create diversity and encourage players to try the other faction at some point in time. I mean, come on, why would you go Horde as a melee player unless you are a die-hard Horde fan? If you play Alliance, you get Kings, Salvation, Strength of Earth, and Grace of Air totems combined, and Wind Fury. That's crazy. For me, there are also a few too many abilities from future expansions on offer here, but I'm willing to cut Blizzard some slack on this, as it is a seasonal server, and they won't have had forever to develop entirely new content for every class. Also, I suppose that a bunch of these abilities from future expansions will be new to a sizable portion of the players who just didn't play the game when they were out. But abilities such as Lava Burst, Divine Storm, Chaos Bolt, for example, I don't know, Blizz, I think that's gonna be pretty hard to balance. Nevertheless, and with these concerns, I am very excited to dive into Season of Discovery on November 30th. I can't believe it's coming so soon. I mean, many of us expected to hear about a season at Blizzcon, but this is coming up very fast. It will also give us an entirely unknown meta for the game, which is so exciting to see. Class-related videos are my favourite ones to make, and I only really get to do them once per expansion usually, so I do plan to cover each class's updates in follow-up content. Of course, a ton of information here is still unknown. There will always be stuff to discover, such as what the future runes will be, how they're acquired, all of that stuff. Blizzard did decide to provide quite a sizable amount of information at BlizzCon though, and once information is out there on the internet, you can't take it back. There were lists of every rune online before BlizzCon had finished, and there will be an add-on or something telling you how to get every rune not long after the server's alive. Just enjoy the game for what it is while it's fresh. It's gonna be a good time either way. Information spreads fast, it is what it is. But I will at least cover the runes that we know at the moment, what kind of builds they may fit into, how impactful they will be, whether they are entirely new or from a later expansion, all that good stuff. Theory crafting for me really is half the fun, and rarely in Classic do you get a chance to do it, so look forwards to those videos soon. That's about everything I wanted to say for Season of Discovery. I just want to cover a few more bits of general news now in case you've missed them over the BlizzCon weekend. Self-bound Hardcore mode has been confirmed to release early 2024. This is basically hardcore but no trading, auction house or mailbox. You are a self-sufficient adventurer taking care of your own professions, your own gear and everything else. This is a new way to play hardcore, which should add an extra level of challenge to the experience. The unofficial servers were played for the most part on this setting, and they were always very popular, so I think a decent chunk of players will go back to hardcore together to test themselves once again. Blizzard have also mentioned they have a few surprises for this game mode too, so I'm going to be keeping my eyes on this and updating when I can. Blizzard have confirmed no plans for Era, Wrath of the Lich King Classic servers. I'm kind of surprised, not gonna lie. Wrath has been a consistent world and version of WoW that people go back to again and again. It has proven its staying power, and if Wrath isn't getting an error, I don't think any other version of WoW will at this point. I'm surprised the demand hasn't been met on this, but I guess they just don't think there's enough people that will play it. On top of that, there are no plans for fresh progression servers either. When asked about this, Blizzard said, nothing to announce, but it's all about player desire. If people want it, we'll definitely give it another look, but nothing to say at the moment. As for the future of Classic, I'm just saying, if we're getting Cata, we are getting Mists of Pandaria too. Blizzard said about this, Classic itself is born of the community, nothing is off the table. We'll look at Mists of Pandaria and beyond to see what people want. So don't even worry about MOP happening. It's as sure as Wrath was from TBC. In fact, I have a video speculating how far they'll go with Classic, which I need to finish up pretty soon. As for Cataclysm, well, we also got that confirmed to no one's surprise, and they have said that it is coming with #changes. That so far appears to include the retail version of the Transmog collection, the continuation of the Titan Rune dungeons we had in Wrath, and maybe even the retail auction house. I want to cover all the Cata news fully in a separate video. I kind of expected to hear a bit more about the changes that they're planning and was waiting on that though. Either way, expect Cata coverage from me in the near future. But that is it. Personally, I am very happy with the announcements that have been made this BlizzCon. Let me know your thoughts below about the new Season of Discovery, the other news that was dropped at BlizzCon, down below in the comments. And, as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in. I'll see you on the next one very soon.